Yeah, we're coming to that point. I was looking forward to this. Honest, I love Dan Aykroyd, and it's not just because he's Canadian. I mean, he's a very well-rounded comedian. If you watch some of his older skits in SNL, I know the back in the day, people give a lot of onus. They say that it was the best back in the 1970s when SNL Saturday Night Live first started. I personally have a hard time watching those, and I know it's because some of it's political. And me today, looking back and watching those old episodes, I'm pretty not even really sure. I'm not a political type person, so I don't even know what the heck they're talking about. But I could see the value in some of the characters that Dan Aykroyd played. Blues Brothers, absolutely wonderful. Him and John Belushi, and I don't know the name of the guy, but he was like a salesman. He would sell toys for kids, but the toys were basically like the most dangerous things. Like there was an action figure that had a knife that shot out the top of it, or it was just one was just a bag of broken glass. So I loved it. I love that kind of stuff. I loved him in Coneheads. I loved him in, and of course, the quintessential one that all paranormal people love, Ghostbusters. So people say, oh, okay, Dan Aykroyd, he was one of the writers for Ghostbusters, that all of it's just kind of like, fake and for fun. And that's how the movie is. It's done more in a fun, cartoonish way. But Aykroyd himself comes from a family of spiritualists. Now, if you don't know what that is, look it up. Like, this is from the 1920s and early 1900s. This was the beginning of the paranormal movement. The spiritualists were the ones who did the seances back in the day. They were the ones that kind of gave fame to the Ouija board, that made it into a board game later on. That was the reason why people kind of got into it. And the Aykroyd family themselves is one of the oldest established spiritualist families in all of Canada. His brother wrote a book. Now, everything I tell you could be covered in the article. As you know, with Strange News, I do not pre-read these articles. But, okay, this looks like it might be more of an interview format with Aykroyd himself. Dan Aykroyd. But let's just get to it. So this is from the Globe and Mail. The date is May 8th, 2020. Look at this, everyone. I have something modern for once. Very excited about that. Okay, so there's a picture of Dan Aykroyd in a snazzy suit looking all cool. He's almost in it's a radio studio. If you want to look it up, the article is titled Dan Aykroyd on His Family History in the Occult. It's by an author named Dave McGinn. That's McGinn. Okay. If you want to talk about ghosts, then who are you going to call? You should probably call Dan Aykroyd. His fascination with the paranormal started in childhood. He channeled that fascination to a particularly well-known movie about ghosts. Yes, it was a comedy, but Aykroyd's interest in the paranormal is no laughing matter. Oh, I see what he did there. He explores his curiosity about ghosts and ghost stories as a narrator of the new television show Hotel Paranormal, airing on T&E. I don't know if everybody gets T&E, but I'm sure you can search it. Maybe it's streaming somewhere. The 10-part documentary series produced by Toronto-based Saloon Media, I've heard of them, Blue Ant Media Company, features stories about people who claim to have encountered ghosts and otherworldly phenomena in hotels. Now, this is, as a side note, this is very personal to me. I have stayed in many hotels. I actually told the story of that plantation from the Southern Comfort label that I stayed at with the little kid ghosts. I mean, places like that with so many people going through and so many things happening, especially historic hotels, almost like a focal point of paranormal energy. So if you are a paranormal investigator and you're wondering where do I investigate next, stay in a haunted place. Of course, after the pandemic, it's not really much to do now, but after the pandemic, go to the haunted hotels, bed and breakfasts. These are the places to definitely go investigate. So this show, Hotel Paranormal, is about hotels, which sounds wonderful, by the way. The Globe and Mail's Dave McGinn spoke to Aykroyd by phone about his family history in the occult. why he wanted to be part of the documentary, and why he hopes it helps turn scientists into believers. It's always been my goal too. So here you go. First question. Is it true your great-grandfather was a spiritualist who held seances? This is Aykroyd. He said he did. There's a book called History of Ghosts. My dad wrote... I screwed that up. So it was Dan Aykroyd's dad, not his brother, that wrote it. Peter Aykroyd. It's about mediumship and his interest in it. He was never the reviewer of all the psychic acts who came through town. He was associated with the Lilydale... He was the reviewer, not never. He was the reviewer of the psychic acts who came through town. He was associated with the Lilydale community in New York. This is like a psychic community, a small town. It's sort of a tourist thing now. Where today you can go and get a reading from a registered psychic. He passed it on to his son and my dad, Peter. Okay. They wanted to know what's going on here. How is levitation possible? How is ectoplasm possible? They wanted to do inquiry. They passed it on to me when I took it and turned it into a ludic exploitation. Oh, okay. Well, he's kind of putting it down. I don't like that. It's a great movie, Dan. Just run with it. And called Ghostbusters. So I got a little confused there. I'm not sure what he was mentioning about levitation and ectoplasm. I assume he just means that his family was into learning more. Next question. Have you had input in the new Ghostbusters that's set to come out next year? Yeah, that's the Afterlife, I think it's called, which it was supposed to come out this year if it wasn't, or 2020 if it wasn't for the stinking pandemic. I gave Jason, as in Reitman, who is, by the way, the son of the man who helped direct the first Ghostbusters, Ivan Reitman, who, by the way, has a connection to my own personal city. He went to McMaster University here. Him, Eugene Levy, I don't know if Dan Aykroyd was part of that back then, too. Or Martin Short. I think John Candy was part of it, but he was never really here. But look up a movie called Cannibal Girls. Catherine O'Hara was part of that, too. Cannibal Girls was filmed in Hamilton by the McMaster students, which included Reitman. So I gave Jason my view on how I thought the writing could be maybe pointed up a bit here and there. I gave my advice and counsel. I was mostly in agreement with Ivan and Jason with what should be in the movie. There was really no dispute or anything. It's his story and his take. He's made it his own, and it's really, really good. I can't wait to see it personally. Dan says, I'm excited to take my kids to see it. They should see the first two before the movie with Melissa McCarthy, too. It was very nice parallel universe and very well done. He's being polite. Why did you want to be part of this new show? I love the T&E treatment of these subjects because they are sympathetic to what these people have gone through. That's true. T&E, I always hear any of the ghost shows. I think Creepy Canada was part of the original inclination to that, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, T&E's done well with the ghost shows. Continuing, they kind of bust through a little skepticism. Why would these people say they had these experiences that were so hard on them? The evidence is depicted well, and with actual iPhone and camera footage of the events associated with the material is very convincing. Oh, that's cool. So a lot of them just kind of do what they call dramatizations. I can talk about that in the future. I actually blow the whistle on some shows, which I won't, but I'll tell you the experience another time. But that a lot of them don't use the experience, the actual experience. They just do a dramatization and make it seem like it was actually happening in the moment, which is, very rare that stuff actually happens in the moment. Some investigators can go days without anything and then get the smallest little piece of evidence. So it's rare. So he continues to say, hopefully someone out there, multiple people in the scientific community, will start to make inquiry now on what's going on. He's thinking that this show might get it out there. So they asked Dan Aykroyd, so you're a true believer? And he says that I've been told spectacular ghost stories by people who know that I'm going to take them seriously. I'm not going to laugh at them. That's actually a really interesting point. I'm told many great ghost stories, and I think it's part of the reason why that I'm also a believer in them. And that, a lot of these stories, they get just kind of pushed away, or they're never told to the world because the person is afraid that somebody will laugh at them. So if you do want to hear ghost stories, approach it from a very serious angle, and then watch how people will come to you, the people you didn't expect, and they have wonderful ghost stories. He's not going to laugh at them. I look at this experience and I go, boy, you really tell me a vivid story that I can believe. The TNE show is chock full of this stuff. It's fun, entertaining, and scary. And it gives one pause. Not every experience with the paranormal is pleasant, and there are many that are not. So I think that's just marketing right there. It's, yes, Dan, it's true. In fact, I'd say that the majority of experiences are probably not pleasant. The majority of ghosts usually come from tragic experience. I'm not saying all. I'm just saying the majority. So he asks, is there one story from the show that really stuck with you? And Dan says, the guy in New Mexico in a hotel there, he had to have religious intervention in the end. A demonic entity clung to him. It's so beautifully depicted. Man, he's selling it well. I think I want to watch it now. What continues to interest you in the paranormal? I think who it happens to. Oh, okay, so the people having the experience with them. So people who are vulnerable, who have been brought down by life stresses, who have been weakened, they need conviction in life, or they're missing something. A state of psychic compromised immunity, you could call it. That's what I love about the T&E approach to it. They treat the cases very sympathetically because they know these people have been through a warlike trauma in some cases. I don't know. As a side note, I've had many experiences over the years, and I can understand if somebody is extremely scared by it, and if they've gotten a shock from that. But I don't know if to say Warlight, probably not the best term. Maybe very tense, definitely sticks with you. Like you'll never forget. But warlike, I don't know. I have to disagree with that. But again, I think it's just part of the marketing for the show. They continued, what are your hopes for the show? I hope people can come forward and not be laughed at. 100% agree with that. With the sympathy and compassion the producers and the whole tone of the show has, I think people will come forward either public or privately to tell their stories. Wonderful. I think that is going to bust through a lot of skepticism. I think even the hardcore skeptics are going to go, well, that's a pretty convincing story. And I hope that scientific inquiry on the order of what used to happen at some of the universities in the States begins to occur again. That is very true. Paranormal used to be more sought after back in the day, but then there was this turn at one point. This is Daniel talking, by the way. There was this turn at one point that turned away from the paranormal, that kind of made it seem like a complete joke. And that the science, I don't know, I think it was because of popular media and TV shows and movies, that the science then turned and said, okay, no, it's ridiculous. We're not going to put any time into it. They kind of ignored the entire spiritualist side of life completely, which I think is a huge mistake. But thankfully, this is something that Dan Aykroyd doesn't mention in the article here, thankfully there's a turn back towards it with quantum science. And that quantum science, I think, is going to kind of bring that connection back, because that's the one thing that science hasn't really covered yet. It's now being covered in quantum science. So look out for that. Future podcast topic, by the way. Just finally with the article, so a university in the States used to have that, but they don't anymore. We've got to get to academia and science interested in it. The invisible world is out there. It's at work. How does it work? We need scientists to come on board. So it says that the show Hotel Paranormal premiered May 15th, 2020. I'm going to personally look it up. I recommend that you also look it up. It does sound very interesting.